Welcome to the Midland Moment Podcast, the podcast dedicated to telling the story of Midland through the eyes of its employees. I'm your host, Jeremy Wiltz. With me today is John White. John serves as the Center Administrator for the PACE Center in Lawrence, Kansas, and he has served with Midland for the past 5.5 years. John, welcome.
Well, thank you.
So I'm really excited to have John on. John's been here since I've been here, and I've known John since pretty much the very beginning of my time here. So it's always fun to talk to someone that's been around about the same amount of time. But John, can you tell me a little bit, maybe describe your job as what you do as a center administrator, and then what led you from where you were to coming to Midland?
Sure. So as a center administrator, I manage the PACE Center in Lawrence, called Perry Center because it's on Perry Street in Lawrence, Kansas. Currently, we have about 84 participants that are associated with our center in Lawrence. Basically, I'm overseeing the day-to-day operations of the center itself, making sure the interdisciplinary team works collectively, with our clinic, with our day center, with our therapy team, our interdisciplinary team to ensure, participants get the care that they're supposed to get through the PACE program. Working with our transportation team, we bring about 24 to 32 people into our center each day. They come into the clinic to get wound care or have assessments to determine, what our care plans are going to be, working for them. They may come in early in the morning, have breakfast, they have lunch. They may come in, get a shower if necessary, and then they may do therapy during the day, have activities during the day, and most of it is socialization with other older adults, and then our teams go out into the community to provide care for them. The premise with the PACE program is to keep people out of long-term care and into their own homes. So we wrap our services around to try to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think it's always interesting going to the PACE Center during the day, and you really see how much coordination has to take effect. And John is kind of the wizard behind the curtain sometimes, making sure all of that gets done at our Lawrence Center, which we've had it in play for a while. Do you remember when the Lawrence Center was started?
I think the Lawrence Center started in around 2010, 2011. Because of Lawrence, the population that's in Lawrence, it hasn't grown as fast as some of our other centers. A higher socioeconomic community in Lawrence. With a lot of supportive services in Lawrence. So it hasn't grown as quickly as some of our other centers, but has the potential to serve, quite a few more than it's currently serving.
Can you kind of talked about activities during the day that patients are involved in and being able to, have that social aspect as well as being able to kind of get out into the community a little bit more. Can you kind of expound on that a little bit? Some of the things you've seen the PACE Center do for people that would normally be stuck at their home, not able to do it.
Watching TV or something like that. Of course, they get into their little cliques, as you can imagine, where I know these 6 people that sit at my table every day, so we try to have them move around to do other things. In the center, they may do armchair aerobics. They may have a drum circle. They may be doing like Pictionary or going through the news during the day, having arts and crafts that they do in the center. One of the things that our center has kind of really picked up on, which has been kind of fun through art and therapy and, socialization, we brought in some dart boards. And so the participants started playing darts. And now I would say that 10 or 12 of those folks have gone out and purchased their own darts. And now they share their darts with each other, and our life enrichment person, Kirsty, along with our therapy team and our center staff, they keep score and they play on teams. They have tournaments for darts. They have a dart recognition board for people who've had bullseyes. Those people who would normally have difficulty transitioning from sit to stand or from standing would get support from our team members to help them stay in place to throw the darts. And you can imagine when a person who has difficulty with mobility gets up and hits a bullseye for their team, how much that brings joy to them. And so we have a board in our center that has how many bullseyes each person's had, and everybody gets recognized for that. It's part of their therapy. It's part of their art. It's part of their center participation.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things about the Lawrence Center, especially being embedded in the neighborhood, is you guys do some community outreach into the neighborhood as well, don't you?
Oh yeah, last couple of years we've had a barbecue, a cookout in our neighborhood. The North Lawrence Neighborhood Association group has kind of taken us with them to be part of the North Lawrence Association. So we partner with them. They've had a fundraiser as part of the Celebration Walk the last couple of years. We'll have that again this year, later in the year. But that gives an opportunity for people to come to our center, see our center, and get some education and knowledge about what our PACE Center is, but also, share a meal with them.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but anybody that's not involved in the PACE program from Midland or from the community that happens to be listening to this, I'm sure if you reach out to any one of our PACE centers, whether it's our one in Topeka, in Emporia, in Lawrence, or in Kansas City, Kansas, that any of the center administrators would love to show you around and love to show you what we're able to do on a daily basis. It's really fun to go see. So from a Midland perspective, what have you seen and what do you see in Midland that makes it the place that you want to spend your career?
Yeah, and I tell people this all the time. I believe in what Midland Care is doing. It has the right message. It's doing the right thing for the right reasons. When it comes to providing care, Midland has this whole wide spectrum of care options or supports for our community members when it comes to end-of-life care, when it comes to in-home care, when it comes to post-hospitalization, post-rehabilitation care, when it comes to just having an organization that wants to provide care for people, and it's not only for the 55 plus, which is the PACE program, it's caring for all ages, and ensures that people who need care get care. There's no, oh no, we can't provide care to this person because of X, Y, or Z. It's like, what can we do to provide care for people? And for me, that's always been something that I've been, especially later in my career, is wanting to be a person who helps people get the care that they need. So that's always been important. And Midland Care definitely meets that goal for myself.
Yeah. And I think what you bring up, you also, you exemplify in a lot of ways. For those of you that weren't at the recent celebration walk, John took on the impossible task of being in charge of all the 2,000 luminaries that we put out and spent many, many hours bending over, putting candles and placing luminaries and all of those things. So John lives out what he preaches from a Midland value standpoint, for sure. Do you have any stories or any examples that you've seen from any of your time at Midland that just kind of exemplify those values of getting the right care at the right time, and doing the right thing?
I could say a lot of different examples, just being in the PACE program. So I've been in Lawrence as the center site manager when I first started, to the center manager at Topeka for a short period of time, then back to Lawrence as the center administrator. Each time a new person comes onto the PACE program, there's a different story for that person. But I remember one individual who's currently a participant in our Lawrence location, and he doesn't live very far from our center. He did not want to come on the PACE program. A person who needed some assistance in the home was very, okay, I'll get involved, but I'm not going to do anything, when I get come into the PACE Center. I know I need some help, and we got him involved in the PACE program. This was just after I started in 2018. He's still enrolled in our program, been in our program for 5 years plus. He is now somebody who acts as our participant council board person. He welcomes new participants into the center and, actually rides his bike into the center to come into our center, as opposed to using our transportation, which he does use from time to time, based on mobility needs and that sort of thing. But, he is an advocate for our program. So anytime we bring somebody on the program and we're able to have that impact, that effect on their lives, those are all stories in and of themselves for each of those individuals.
I know it's a conversation we've had before, and I know you've been involved in it. The unseen piece of seniors as they age and their friends start to pass away and they're less connected, and how you see that. anxiety, depression, loneliness start to creep up on them. And it's so encouraging every time you see a PACE center and you see somebody that was reluctant to come that then finds their group that is around something, and all of a sudden it's like a new lease on life. It's all of a sudden they're excited for the day. And I think that's such a great example of what I tell people all the time is the PACE model is a model that Medicare really got right. It's a model that is really kind of the secret sauce, and its best kept secret in healthcare is that we take people that would normally be home and be isolated during possibly the final years of their life. And instead of enjoying those last few years, they see both a mental and a physical decline from that isolation. And we pull them out of that and are able to keep them through your staff and through your efforts, be able to keep them both mobile and mentally sharp and keep them physically active and keep them out of the hospital because it's not where they want to be. And then let them enjoy the last years of their life in their home doing what they would like to do. And I think that's such a great thing about the PACE program.
Yeah, I would agree. It's those people who are actively involved in their care, making the decisions for their own care. That's what we do in our care planning process. But when it comes to, coming into the center, this is their family now. Some of these folks may not have any outside support other than the PACE program. It's nice that we're able to be that family for them. And some of them do have family who do get involved and become part of the PACE family as a support network for our participants, and we have Eddie Smith was one of our participants years ago who passed. But that's why we do the neighborhood cookout in Lawrence, is because his family wanted to do something for PACE and for Midland Care to keep that legacy of their father being involved in the Midland Care program. And so it's been really nice to have that family involvement.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great just epitome of what Midland Care is about and what the PACE program is about. So you've seen kind of our history as a PACE program. You've seen our program grow very quickly over the last 5.5 years. I think 5.5 years ago, if you would have said, "Hey, we'll be at over 600 and we're continuing to grow. We're going to add another center. We're going to do all of these things." I don't know that any of us, including myself, would have said, "Yeah, that's exactly where we're going to be."
No, right.
So what excites you about the future of Midland? What excites you about where we're going?
I think just like you said, the growth, when 2020 happened and it kind of slowed everything down, PACE didn't stop. PACE kept growing during that period when a lot of other nationwide PACE programs didn't grow. Midland Care continued to grow. It excites me because we are expanding into areas that don't have this type of care already. And so when they get in their care, Topeka is a perfect example. Started with 11 participants 17 years ago in Topeka, and now we're sitting at 347 people just in Topeka that get the care. When you think about that many people getting care in Wyandotte County or Johnson County or any of these other counties, that's just exciting because we may be at 600 now, but 3 or 4 years from now, we may be at 1,000. We may be at 1,100. And knowing that we're able to expand into those areas and giving care to people who don't currently have it, that's exciting for me.
So before we kind of conclude, one of the things I want to talk just a little bit about is, so we put this podcast on our social media. We put this podcast on our website. There may be, when this podcast comes out, a patient or a family that says, "Hey, this PACE model of care really fits with where I want to go and what I want to do." So if they were interested in finding out more, what's the best way for them to start that process and get in touch with somebody?
And they can always call the 800 number, 800-726-7450. They can go onto our website, Midland Care Connections, and just find out how to ask for an intake person. They can go to the area agencies on aging in their communities and ask them for a referral. They can get referrals from their hospitals. They can get referrals from long-term care facilities, home health agencies. They can get a referral to Midland Care's PACE program. We are the only PACE program in Northeast Kansas. So if somebody wants to find out about PACE and or if they're applying for Medicaid in the state of Kansas, PACE is one of the Medicaid options in the state of Kansas. So they can find the information from any source that they want to look at. If they ask about PACE, they're going to find that it's easy to get information about PACE. but come to the Midland Care website or call on their Midland Care 1-800 number, and that'll get them to an intake person that can talk to them about what it takes to get on the PACE program.
Yeah. So anyone that happens to be listening that would be interested, please reach out. Like John said, we're the only PACE program in Northeast Kansas. So to conclude, I always like to throw a little kind of extra fun question at people. I switch between a few, but I wanted to ask, so when you were a kid, what did you want to be? Was PACE Center Administrator on the top 10 of where you thought you were going to be when you were a kid? Or what did John White grow up wanting to be?
It depends on what age you're talking about, because of course it was a baseball player, or it was, maybe a fireman or something along those lines. As I got into my older childhood, it might have been an actor, maybe. PACE Center Administrator was not on the list. I think when I worked for an area agency on aging for about 10 years, that really got me working with the 55 plus population. Before that, it might have been because of some of my past, probably a youth probation officer, that sort of thing. But once I started in the career path for the 55 plus population, that's where I want to be. That's where I'm staying.
Well, and we're so glad that you chose to work with the 55 plus population, because we love having you here at Midland. I always enjoy having conversation with you. We usually talk way longer than we should sometimes, but it's always super enjoyable. So John, thank you for coming on today, and thank you for everybody tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.